What is up, guys? Welcome back to the freaking channel, Walking on Water. In today's episode, we are gonna dive deep beneath the water and with a few questions that I've been asking myself for a while now. What entices these kokanee to strike our setups? Why do these setups seem to catch more fish underwater when we are turning? At what speeds underneath the water do kokanee want to hit the lures the most? Today we are gonna take a look at kokanee setups underwater. We are gonna take our GoPro underwater footage, these kokanee setups, so we can all better understand why these kokanee like certain speeds, like certain setups, and like turns. Let's get under the water, like, subscribe, and share. Let's get right into it. All right, this is the Slingblade / Hoochie at 1.2 miles an hour. As you can see, it's going at a nice, slow, consistent pace. The wobble on the Slingblade is very consistent, back and forth, as it should be. There's not a lot of sporadic movement to the Hoochie while it's traveling straight at 1.2 miles an hour, so we know that. Alright guys, so now at 1.6 miles an hour is where the Slingblade starts to get a little bit interesting to me. As you can see, the tempo of the wobble has increased, almost like you put a bend in the Slingblade, but the thing that's the most interesting is look at the Hoochie that's trailing this. The Hoochie is actually moving in a very sporadic motion, and as we know, salmon class type fish love that sporadic type motion, almost simulating a turn. So it's interesting to me that at 1.6, obviously we're getting a more sporadic type movement in the setup overall, like we're turning. I know kokanee like to be fished at 1.2, but there's something to be said here looking at this Hoochie setup at 1.6 miles an hour. Alright guys, so now that we've looked at 1.2 miles an hour and 1.6 miles an hour, I figured why not throw them together and let's just look at them side by side really fast. The 1.2 miles an hour is looking very consistent, straight moving through the water, both of these are, no turns involved. A nice consistent, a short wobble distance, and some sporadic movements from the Hoochie, not as sporadic as obviously the 1.6 miles an hour up top. You can see that very fast sporadic movement for the Hoochie setup and the Slingblade on top with the 1.6. You can see that Hoochie just whipping back and forth pretty quickly, unlike the one on the bottom with that slower, more consistent movement. Now let's take a look at this setup while we're doing a turn. Alright, now the turn is obviously the most important part because 95% of my kokanee, and I'm sure a lot of your guys' kokanee as well, were always caught on turns. Turning for salmon class type fish is and has always been very big and huge, and I think we can see why here, and I think this provides some information that I've been wanting to have the answers to for a long time. So 1.2 miles per hour turning, okay, not as sporadic as the 1.6 miles an hour, a little fast for kokanee, but the turn is providing almost a 1.5 mile an hour turn, depending on which side the rod's on. Obviously, if it's on the inside rod of the turn, it's not going to be as fast. It's actually going to slow down. If it's on the outside rod position for the turn, then when you're whipping that thing around, it's actually going to speed up. And that's what we have here. All these turns are the outside rod, and you can see how the increase in wobble in that Slingblade, a nice, slow, consistent, but a hard thump with that Hoochie trailing behind it, which just always entices those kokanee to bite. So I think that's one of our answers for one of our questions, is just the simple fact that turning at 1.2 miles an hour is providing the perfect and a very consistent wobble and sporadic movement for the Hoochie, which entices these kokanee and these salmon class fish to strike our lures. Alright guys, now that we've went over the nitty gritty of the 1.2 to 1.6 miles an hour Slingblade with the famous trailer Hoochie, you know, probably the most catching, you know, setup there is for kokanee, arguable, I'm sure a lot of people have their best and their favorite lures, but in my case it's been the trailer Hoochie. But I'm just gonna throw up a few other setups up on the screen so you guys can see them underwater as well. I hope you guys enjoy the underwater footage. Here it is. so freaking much for tuning into this episode of Walking on Water. It was my pleasure to shoot these underwater Kokanee setup shots for you guys. I think I've learned something from this just in getting to watch how these different setups maneuver under the water on turns, going 1 mile an hour up to 1.5 miles an hour. There's a lot of information to be learned by just looking simply at how the lures are working in the water. That's why lure speed and presentation is such a key element to fishing. And so hopefully this has helped you guys in some way. If it has, please like, subscribe, and share. The LEWS Mach 2 baitcaster combo giveaway is still happening. We are at 3,400 watch hours. Once we hit 4,000 watch hours, which we are on our way, we are going live on stream and we are giving away a brand new LEWS Mach 2 baitcaster combo for one of you guys. Thank you guys so freaking much. God bless. I love making these videos for you guys. I hope there are tons more to come. See you in the next one.